Chief Reviews.
Hello, my green skins. As we have another Halloween season of the witch. And Dark, what movie are we doing this week?
Warlock.
Warlock 1, the first movie he actually enjoyed this time. Why don't you tell me a little about this movie here? Just a little tiny bit. Give us a snippet.
Well, there's not really much to say about it, but it's the way it was executed that was well. But it's, in a nutshell, it's basically a witch hunt story in the 20th century. It starts off with our main characters, the hero and the villain, in what was it, the 17th century or something, and
Yeah, early 17th, early 18th century.
yeah, the warlock, the which is a male witch apparently, plans his escape, and he executes his escape, which sends both of them into the 1980s, the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere there, and they
1988.
1988, and our
I
hero,
think.
what was
I
his
think
name?
I could be. No, it was 1993, wasn't it?
It feels like an 80s movie.
It does. I could be wrong. Goddamn. We're gonna have to have that scene where he's looking at the paper and he sees the date of the paper because I don't remember actually at all. So the story of this, as Dark was saying, we're they travel into the future after they're about to burn him and a bunch of cats. Which a little side note to kitty cats everywhere: we do not condone the burning of kitties. Kitties are our friends. They are our good little buddies, and screw dog owners.
Hey, you
And
suck.
oh no, dog owners suck.
I'm a dog owner, asshole.
Oh God! Now we're gonna have pictures of his dogs pop up.
But I've also owned
Oh,
cats
cats
in the
are
past.
awesome.
I would like to have a cat. And if you've watched our previous videos, you could hear the little kitten I looked after, but he unfortunately died.
Oh yeah, that sucked. We have him going into the future, and he sees one of his rings on this guy, which we won't mention who he is much about him. That like basically he gets saved by the antagonist and the victim to his next violent murder. And this guy gets murdered. Apparently, like, they don't show anything, but fuck, like the way they describe it, it's not a pretty. Yeah, it's not pretty. Like we get to see a couple seconds of him ripping the guy's tongue out, and that's about it. And then it's a violent death, and then our main lead, I can't remember her name now, Catherine Fouquet, I think.
Cassandra with a K, played by Laurie
Cassandra with a
Singer.
K.
Yeah,
Okay, Cassandra with a K is a 20-something that was living with with our victim,
roommate. Her
roommate
roommate.
victim. Well, call him victim, which leads up to some pretty interesting questioning by the police, which I thought was, wow, that was interesting. And then we get to her coming back to the house to get her stuff. Then she runs into Remfeld, our local vampire slayer. I mean, witch
Redfern.
hunter Renfern, our witch finder general, or as I like to call him, our vampire slayer, because he has a whip and everything. Which has him have an interesting run-in with the cops. And let's just say Whip loses against Taser.
So yeah,
So,
the movie is basically these two going around looking for Warlock, and he is
Looking for
adjusting
Warlock.
to, yeah, and they're trying to, he's adjusting to life in the 20th century, and there's a bit of
Yeah.
gags and humor along the way, but nothing that's wacky or gets or just takes away from the tone of the movie, unlike a certain Hudson Hawk type movie.
Yeah, this one has some good moments, but it has some silly moments. There's nothing like watching Warlock Naruto run when he gets a flying potion.
By the way, while I was editing this, I noticed that you keep saying Naruto. Why do you say Naruto? It's pronounced Naruto.
Well, it's because fuck you,
Fuck you, you!
fuck you, you.
Fuck you, you!
Which, by the way, that was hysterical. When I saw him kind of doing that whole where he had the arm over his shoulder doing the Naruto run, I was just like, I know it's not the Naruto run. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm gonna get so many comments. That's not the Naruto run. That's the fucking Shirokama run from such and such anime series. I fucking get it, weebs. I don't care.
Well, I will say this about that. People who do the Naruto run in real life look stupid.
Well, it doesn't work. You gotta you really, because you kind of build
momentum.
them, yeah, human body doesn't work to Naruto run. It looks bad. So he goes and does his magic flying potion, and then it leads to him finding another, going and looking for something called the Pages of the Grand Grimoire. It's this magical book it's the Black Bible, the Book of Shadows, the Necronomicon, whatever else you want to call it.
He did not say Bible Black.
No, but same book, different series. Actually, technically, they're all the same series based off of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, created by a man, the man H.P. Lovecraft, one of the creators and founders of horror, that has to this day given Stephen King more money than he just freaking deserves. Stop stealing H.P. Lovecraft's work, Stephen King. You suck for that.
Whoops. Sorry.
Anyway. So, he is looking for the book to find the name of God, because if you say the name of God forwards, it creates things, but if you say the name backwards, it basically wipes out existence. So the name of God, he's hunting for this book for that purpose. He actually learns a brand new magic spell, which he uses on Renford a couple times. And Renford does some cool stuff that I kind of like. But him and this other girl travel on to find the book. Upon finding the book, the final showdown happens. Renford versus the Warlock versus some Valley girl. Literally some Valley girl. They defeat Renford, and it shows one of the most fun endings I think it's one of the best endings in a movie. I actually like this ending. Which leads us, unfortunately, to a complete and other ending that should have ended the series. I can't believe there was 2 more movies. We will be discussing Warlock 2, but why? So, Dark, what did you think of the acting for this movie?
I think the acting is a mixed bag, but none of which I would consider bad. I mean, the girl is fine, and actually, she's a little more than fine, because she has to play an old lady, because there's a plot point where a spell is cast on her and she's aging like 10 years each day or something or 20 years or something like that.
20 years a day, 2 decades per day or something like that.
So she has to speak like an old woman, move like an old woman. So I think she did fine, but the makeup this was the 80s. They couldn't make people look older. I mean, the whole point of makeup is to look younger. Yeah, the point of makeup is to look younger. It's like they're asking the makeup artist to do the opposite.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that in a later like in the visual effects stuff. But yeah, I think go ahead.
But she did fine considering what she was given. the main actors,
Julian Sands is the
Julian
warlock,
Sands, yeah,
and
Julian Sands and Richard E. Grant as Warlock and Redfern were really good. Um, they felt otherworldly,
Mhm.
otherworldly. So that was what they needed because they're from the past.
they're phenomenal. I actually had not warned him that this was a time travel movie. I purposely kept that out. And I did that on purpose because when he saw it for the first time, he was like, "What the fuck? This is a time travel movie?" And it's like, "Yeah, it is." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." It's like, "Yeah, I wasn't going to tell you. I wanted you to find out." And it is actually interesting. It's actually an interesting time travel. The whole reason he's sent here is because this is the only opportunity that his Dark Lord, the servant of some other Dark Lord, won't get into that. He gets sent back here just to find the Grand Gamor. Now the funny thing is about Julian Sands and Renford's character. I can't remember Renford's character. What was the other actor? Castlevania guy.
Richard E. Grant.
Okay, we enjoyed both actors. Like I think Julian Sands and Richard E. Grant is amazing in this. They are so good. The looks, the acting. They put this movie a little bit above. Like this movie is actually made by I think this is Roger. Is this Corbin's studio? I can't remember if this is the guy who does like the budget movies, and it looks really good. So, what did you think of the effects? And I guess we'll throw folklore into this movie. What did you think of the effects in folklore?
I can't speak much of the folklore because I don't normally watch witch or fantasy related stuff. But in terms of effects, there was some misses, but I think for the most part, it was really good for a what looks like a mediocre budget movie. I think
It is.
yeah, I think put put the good effects in the right places. So you're gonna find some here and there, but overall, it's when it really matters. They really went all out.
Again, this was apparently a very low budget movie. I can't remember what the money for it was, but it was extremely low budget. And for a low budget picture, this is well done. Like I can't help but enjoy how big budget this movie. Like this movie looks good for a low budget movie, even now to this day. The effects are quite fun when they're done. Some of them are like I said, the Julian Sands flying around, like got to go fast there. Sonic kind of doing his little run with his arm out in one direction, kind of doing that like super run. It's funny, but it's not perfect. The second thing is, it's it has its moments of but it's really well done. Now, the folklore is very fascinating because they bring up a lot of interesting stuff, like the whole pennies is an interesting thing. I haven't heard in a while. The salt trick, the fact that milk spoils, and all these things that were brought up in certain stuff. That it actually, some of it exists, some of it isn't, but it doesn't fucking hold your hand. And that's what makes it good. It's perfect world building. Like, I would love to make this should have had a video game. Find the witch and shit. Like this could have been a fucking great video game, and they just never ever, no one ever did it. We now feel sorry for the witches nowadays than we actually do feel bad for that. So what did you think? What did you think of the music for this?
It's Jerry Goldsmith, and he has some gems under his belt, but unfortunately, this is not. Well, I don't know. Let me start again. Let me start again.
Okay,
This
count three. Go for it.
one. This movie has some nice tracks, but I don't think it's on par with Jerry Goldsmith's best. And he's the guy who did the music for. Well, my favorite scores from him is from the Rambo movies.
I disagree. I think this guy did an amazing job. Again, you're not looking to music so I can listen to it while I'm going working out. I'm looking for music. This isn't on my playlist, but this works for the movie. Sometimes a good soundtrack that works for a movie is far superior than a soundtrack you can listen to on the side. A good example of this is some of the new movies that are coming out recently. They have those 80s music because they want to kind of tempt towards that 80s mentality. I want to do an 80s like movie like Stranger Things. Stranger Things has an awesome soundtrack. I like the soundtrack for Stranger Things. But the show itself is hit and miss for me. I'm not a big fan of this, not a big fan of that. That's a good example of that. You have this amazing soundtrack. Another one was the Daredevil, the opening music for Daredevil and some of the music for Luke Cage was fucking amazing. Luke Cage is like I'm not a big guy into certain types of art types. I'm a metalhead, but I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed everything that came out of Luke Cage's soundtrack. So that was two of the good things about it. So no, I think it. And again, Luke Cage I found hit and miss. It's good and slash bad. Like Luke Cage, I lost interest with after halfway through season two. But the music in it's fucking phenomenal. So you can have a good soundtrack and have a shitty series, but if you have good acting, a decent story, and a good soundtrack, that's pretty good. So, what did you think of overall? What's your rating on this bad boy?
I'm giving this movie a 7.5.
Yeah, same here. I'm giving this one a 7 as well. I think it's a decent movie. This is a movie that I would actually sit down and watch. And it's a good movie. I don't hate it. I don't despise it. I think it was so well done. On a lot of ways, a movie that shouldn't have been. And this is something that we've talked about Dark. It's like, well, I enjoyed the first movie. I'm very interested to see the second. So that's high praise when you hear that someone wants to watch a movie more. Because when someone's like, yeah, you know what? I want to really get into this movie. That's where we know the movie's done right. And you want to see the sequel. Now, will the sequel take off? Will we enjoy the sequel? Will Season of the Witch be saved by Warlock 2? We'll have to find out on the next episode of Orc War Chief Reviews. Like, subscribe, and have yourselves a very good night.